Hello, we are The Promise of Love, bringing to you the Love Effect.
A podcast that brings you real insight and real stories about real relationships.
Well, good evening. This is Rob Hollis here with Winona, and we have a special guest.
Yes, we do.
Our special guest here this evening is Althea Richardson with Wove Inspiration. Althea?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on your show today. It is a blessing and honor to be on here.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
I mean, we connected online because of your ministry, Wove Inspiration. And as we looked at what you're doing and we found out that you've got this rich history
Yes.
of love and marriage and divorce and finding love again. And it was just amazing to hear and see what you bring to us, the world. And so we wanted to sit down and talk with you, with our audience.
Yes.
And first of all, tell us a little bit about Wove Inspiration.
Sure. So, actually, Wove, it started off as Wove, which stands for Women of Vision and Excellence. And it basically is about inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting women and the men who love them to becoming all that they were predestined to be. One of the foundations, of course, is based on Proverbs 31. And that's what we're working on, helping women to become, is what God wants women to, they were predestined to be. And it starts with restoration. And so with Wove, it started off initially as a ministry of being an advocate for domestic violence and sexual assault victims. Having been both in my past experience, this was something that was really put on my heart to do, to reach out to hurting women, to help them overcome the obstacles that I experienced as well. And so with that, let's say maybe about 4 or 5 years later, I was told that I needed to start using my voice. And I'm like, I don't like my voice. So why am I using my voice? Why am I using my voice? But of course, God has a sense of humor, and he's like, you're going to use your voice because people need to hear your story. And so I had a friend of mine who told me about the app called Anchor, and how easy it was to use, where you can just simply use your phone to record messages. And so I did that maybe a couple of times. I was like, I think I recorded myself at least 4 or 5 times trying to get it right. And it was only 15, 20 minutes. But of course, me trying to be a perfectionist, it took me a little bit more time to try to get it right. And long story short, eventually I was able to get out of my shyness and get over the fact that my voice is just, it is what it is. And to me anyway. But then I started to realize that I've heard other people say that your voice is soothing, that you really make me feel comfortable. And I was like, okay, Lord, I see now. So at the end of this, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to start interviewing other people, because there are other people as well that have stories that they need to share. And the people just started coming. He just sent them. I mean, just from everywhere, all kinds of stories, all kinds of businesses, major gospel artists. I mean, it's been a major blessing for me. But now my heart is gearing even more so towards women, in particular hurting women that have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, and also who experience mental health issues. That has become my heart, because even with us going through what we're going through now, it's hard for people to function because of this COVID and all of this stuff that we're going on. And it's becoming even more so on women, especially those that have children. And now they're having to be stuck in the house with their kids and they're trying to function, and then they may be experiencing mental illness. And so I want to reach out to those as well. And so basically, Wove Inspiration, in short, is about inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting people and allowing them or helping them to understand that there is a purpose for everything.
Wow. So you have experienced quite a bit in reaching this point. I mean, it's been said that when we have faith, a lot of times our faith is based on our expectations and desire. However, true faith is just based on, hey, whatever you want, Lord, that's what I need to accept. And even though you cannot see this relationship working out, even though it's not working out, it's you're going through that heartbreak, that trauma of it, there is light on the other side. And if this is happening, having faith means I'm going to stick through this and find that light. Tell me a little about your story in that regard.
As pertaining to relationships, if I have to start from the beginning, I would actually have to start from the beginning in order to let you know what brought me to or how I was brought to where I am today. So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested by an adult. And what's funny is that, well, not really funny, but it was crazy in that I did not realize what had happened to me until I was an adult. And I was in a class for domestic violence, being an advocate for domestic violence victims. I was taking a training class, and there were some things that were brought up in conversation and then their teaching that kind of triggered something in my memory. And so thus the flood of all kinds of things that didn't make sense started going through my mind as to what had happened to me. And then a conversation with my mom, who in actuality had actually the same thing had happened to her within the same family. The same thing had happened to her, and it was just too eerie, too similar. It was just crazy. So when I start from the beginning, that's the beginning then brings about the results of everything that transpires going forward. So for me, after that had happened to me, my relationships going forward were, I was looking for love in all the wrong places, trying to find something or someone to fill that void in my life. And through different relationships, obviously, you can never find the right relationship through any man whatsoever. It just will not happen. If you're not content with who you are and whose you are, then you're always going to be miserable. And so I was miserable for a very long time because I always looked for love in some man. Even if they treated me like dirt, even if they talked to me crazy, even if they disrespected me, even if that was the only thing that they wanted from me. And so going forward after all of these relationships, I did take one break from just trying to figure out who I am. And I did meet a man who I thought he was the one, but through situations and circumstances, I then discovered he was not the one, because there were some things that he didn't mention to me that I wish I knew before I even said I do. And then I found out he had been on drugs, or was on drugs. At the time, the big thing was crack, and that's what he was on. He was on crack. And so the time that we were married technically was 2 years, or by the state was 2 years, but our relationship was only a good 6 months, because a lot of times he wasn't even there at the house. He was gone, or he was just on the street somewhere. and back and forth in and out of rehab. But at that time, I had a relationship. I had a pretty good, strong relationship with God. And so I believed that God would be able to heal him, that he would be able to be restored. And there were times that he, was very sincere in wanting to come off of the drugs, but the drugs seemed to overshadow him often. And so with me praying and he sometimes praying, there were times that we were able to have a real true marriage. But then the enemy would step in and cancel that altogether. And I can only pray but so much. And I can't believe I had to learn for myself later on that I can pray for him all day long, but if he doesn't want to change, then there's nothing that I can do. And so a lot of women,
Indeed.
I know even today in marriages, they want so much for their husbands to change. They want so much for their husbands to go to church with them, but you can't make somebody go to church or do the things that you want to do. They have to be the ones that are willing to do that. And so long story short, with him, it got to the point where I was like, God, you're going to have to let me know what to do with this, because I've done everything I could possibly do. And I have to let this be put into your hands. And through circumstances and everything, God released me out of that marriage. I was divorced in June. No, I was divorced in January. I believe it was January. And then I said, nope, I'm done. This is over with. I'm good. I want to follow you, Lord. I just want to focus on you. I want to help other women, help them overcome everything. I'm not focusing on nobody but you, Lord. But God.
So you were good with men at this point. You're like, I don't need romance. I don't need love. I need love. I only need God's love, but I just don't need another man in my life.
I don't have no desire to be in any form of relationship other than with my Father in heaven. But as we've talked before, God has a sense of humor.
Were you in the state where you were thinking all men are dogs, all men are just horrible people, or you just
I just basically lost the desire in the heart to want to be married or in a relationship with anybody, because you get to the point where you want it so badly that when it doesn't happen, it's like, well, forget about it. I'm just going to move on and go forward. Just why even try anymore? I just basically gave up on marriage and everything, and I just wanted to dedicate my whole life to God, and that was it.
Wow. Okay. And so, what kind of turned you around? Because there was another man that became quite special to you. So somehow you broke out of that mindset.
Definitely. So during this time that I am, I would say I was basically being, I needed a time with just God, and He set that part aside for me. But then through different situations and connections, God set it up to where I had to go to a meeting because I had a desire not only to help women, I also love music. And so because of that, there was an opportunity for me to be able to connect with someone that had a like a record label. He was a producer and everything. And I wanted to promote gospel music. So I was like, hey, let me go check out this guy and see what it's all about. So, and it was myself and another friend of mine, and we show up at his house for the meeting. And when he opens the door, he's looking at me like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm here for a meeting. I was told that, you do music and everything. And And it just kept giving me this really strange look. And I'm like, okay, what is wrong with this guy? And I don't know what's the deal here. So we go through the meeting and everything, and he's still staring at me. And in the part of the house, in a certain part of the house, there was an older lady that lived with him as well, that was kind of like down the hallway, and she peeped around the corner and kind of messaged to him to come to her. And in the meantime, I'm still trying to figure out what is going on. Why does he keep staring at me? And then moments later, he comes back, sits down, and he's staring at me again. I'm like, okay, Lord, what is really going on? I'm not focusing on him at all. I'm focusing on the meeting, what I came there for, and everything. So time goes on, everybody starts to leave, and he actually asked me to stay behind. I didn't think anything of it. I was just, he said he wanted to, ask me some more questions, because I did mention about women's ministry as well. We had a conversation about that, and I went more into detail about the music and what I wanted to do. And then I left it at that. I went home and didn't think anything of it. I get a call later on that evening. It's like 9-10 o'clock at night. I'm like, who's calling me at 9 or 10 o'clock at night? He called to check on me to see if I made it home safely. And I just denied it. I'm not trying to hear, okay, whatever. So I told whatever, thanks for checking on me. I told my friend, the whole experience and everything. And the first thing that she tells me is that is your husband. I'm like, don't tell me that kind of stuff. I'm not listening to you. I'm in denying. I'm going to deny it, whatever. And of course, she keeps going on and on about it, and I just completely ignored her. So going forward, one evening, I was taking a shower, getting prepared for the next day, and God spoke to me, and he said, as clear as day, that is going to be your husband. And I'm in the shower, and I'm arguing back and forth with God, like, nope. That is not my husband. Don't tell me that. I'm not interested in anybody. I just want to focus on you. Well, shorten the story more. May 22nd, 2001, we were married. And I had been married for 18 years. And he was my best friend in this world. He was my best friend. But unfortunately, God called him home on November 20th of last year. And here I am.
So, wow, there was this point in time where, just to recap a little bit, you weren't interested in men at all. You go to this guy's house for ministry and music. And your friend, was this friend with you that evening? Or did you just tell her about
it was like, girl, I went to the meeting, because it was myself and her husband that had went to the meeting. And so I call her and let her know about the whole situation with this guy keeps staring at me. And then that was when she was like, well, that's your husband, right? I'm like, no. And she knew everything that I went through as well prior to all of that. So for her to have even said anything like that, I'm like, are you crazy? No.
So exactly. You knew it had to be God.
And I was still in denial, of course.
So did her husband pick up anything that she might have said to her?
Not really.
Before she talked to you?
Not really. I just,
wow.
she's like my best friend. And so when I know that I knew it was God when she kept saying it over and over again. And I'm like, and she was saying, I know you don't want to hear this, but this is what God is telling me. And I'm like, I understand God is telling you this, but I'm not interested in anybody. I'm not. But God, God knows. He knows because He's the beginning and the end. He's the Alpha
Wow.
and Omega, and He meets us where we are. And even though we can't see where He wants us to be, we just have to follow His lead and go forward.
So while you were in denial, did it take being swallowed by a big fish or a whale for you to change your mind, or how did that come about?
For me, in that experience, after He had spoke to me that evening while I was taking the shower and everything, and I was still in denial, there was a series of other things that happened that just basically connected the dots for me. He still would call me, and then he set up another meeting over at his house, but this time he just so happened to cook for me. And I guess I was at the point where I was like, Lord, I don't want my expectations to be so high that I become really disappointed at the end. And so in my mind, I was like, I'm going to deny this whole thing, even though it was in plain sight what God was doing. It was hard for me to accept because I was afraid to go into another relationship and see that one fail. I was someone that I refused. I didn't want to be divorced anyway. I didn't want to be a part of a statistic. But I don't have any control over that. We don't have any control over that. And you don't have any control over the other person's decision making either. And so it sometimes may end up that way, but what the enemy made for bad, God makes it out for your good, and He works things out for your good. And you just have to believe that when you're going through something like that, maybe there's that appointed time where He wants you to just sit and get to know Him. And that's where I was I needed to get to know Him, and I was real adamant about getting to know Him. And then once I got to that point, and I wasn't focusing like I was when I was single, focusing on being married so much, when I was just focusing on Him, then it seemed as though the doors started to open from there. And, the rest is history.
Wow. So would you say that the experience from the first relationship and leading up to that first marriage, did that prepare your eye and your ear for things to look for and listen for, to know whether or not the second relationship was
there were a lot of things that gave me, because me being married for the first time, I know that there are certain things that a wife is expected to do, as far as being a helpmate to her husband. And I was doing my best to do that in my first marriage, but when he wasn't there, it was a lot more challenging for me to do that. But that was my heart's desire, and I believe that God had placed that in me to want to be a helpmate for someone. And so when the opportunity came to where I found God brought someone to me that was, I guess, my kind of like my balance, then I had the unction to always want to just give and help, and He received it, and it was receptive as well. And so that's why it was always balanced out for us, because as much love as I gave Him, He returned it to me. Versus in my first marriage, it wasn't, not even close. It was very unbalanced in that. But I knew what a wife was supposed to be to her husband. And so I believe maybe God was giving me a preview of what it could be, because there were times that he was a husband, my first husband. He was a husband, but it wasn't he wasn't always there to be able to be that husband. So it was always kind of like a letdown, and I wasn't able to do it.
So in your
Right, but
first
yeah,
marriage, it was
essentially,
unequally
yeah,
yoked.
very much so. And he may have believed in God and everything, but he wasn't committed. Yeah.
I see. So, if you had a closing thought to pass on to someone who's in the healing process right now, what words of hope would you give them
So for
to move
anyone
forward?
that's listening, one of the things that I always suggest is to make sure that you check with yourself. Get with God about who you are and whose you are. Get to know who you are first before you start trying to go back out there again, or before you even think about going into a relationship, because you don't want to bring all of that baggage with you going into another relationship or even another marriage. And then if that person isn't ready and he's taking in luggage as well, you got two people with big bags of luggage and no room for love at all. So my thing is, and for me, I would say that focus on you and focus on the God that loves you unconditionally, that will never leave you nor forsake you. And when you're focusing more on Him, He will bring that king that is for you, or that queen that is for you, and He will have already prepared that individual for you as well. And when you all come together, you got a awesome kingdom for real, and you'll be able to go forward from there. But the main thing is to keep your eyes on God, and everything else will fall into place.
And that is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. Wow.
Now, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for the night, but I really, really, truly appreciate your words opening up to us like that. I know some of that might have been difficult to get through, but at the same time, those warm memories, seeing the contrast of your life between what was then and then what you had the opportunity to become, that's also got to be heartwarming as well.
Yes,
And you
and
are
thank you
today.
guys so much
Yes.
for
Mhm.
allowing me to be transparent and share my story. And I really hope that there's a lot of people that are healed by it.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to encourage you to have a good evening and tune in
Thank
when we
you.
publish. Thank you.
Hold on, let me take a quick moment to encourage you to find true love. That's right, we have published an online course, The 5 Steps to Find True Love. And we conduct a weekly raffle for our new podcast subscribers to win a free lifetime access to the course. So, subscribe to this podcast, The Love Effect, then visit raffle.stepstofindtruelove.com. Again, that's raffle.stepstofindtruelove.com. Good luck. Hey, thanks for tuning into The Love Effect. Respectfully, we ask you to hit that subscribe button to help us keep this going. And if you'd really like some detailed guidance on how to find and confirm true love, come visit us at stepstofindtruelove.com. That's www.stepstofindtruelove.com. Blessings to you.